Hi everyone, welcome. Down here in my wormery, preparing to check in on a couple European nightcrawler worm bins. These systems are up there in age. They're 268 days old. And over here in brackets, you can see where I broke down the 182 days the systems were getting fed in the everyday fashion of including bedding with the feeding. And then for the past 86 days, I've been doing what I refer to as fed foraging, which means I keep feeding, but I don't give any more bedding at that point. But you know, we've been cheating in here a little bit. I did actually put in a napkin to accompany the foods that we gave them last time. And, well, I could do that again today. In fact, you know, those two feeding zone indicators, maybe those will go in to accompany the food, since I've got replacements to include with the feeding today. A couple days worth of coffee, which include the filter. So, a couple other bits of info on here. You're welcome to check it out really quick, but do it quick, because I'm dropping this thing down. We're going to get on a glove, we're going to put those systems up on the bench, and we're going to check out how they're coming along. Let's get to work. So besides these 2 days worth of coffee, including the filter, we've got a couple chunks of pumpkin. We've got 2 banana peels, but these banana peels have a chunk of bruised banana that didn't get eaten. Each of these has a little bonus inside of actual banana, and then there's a couple watermelon rinds here. I took this stuff out of the freezer a little while ago, and most of it is starting to melt. It's a warm day, so it's going to keep melting. I'm curious to see, you know, because even though what we fed them last time I know is a popular item, mushroom. Every time I've ever fed mushroom to my worm bins, the worms just seem to go crazy for this stuff. I'm still wondering if it's going to have the kind of reception that the feeding from 2 times ago got. 2 times ago I put food under the wool sweater as well as on top of it. So I put like radish leaves and coffee underneath, and on top I put watermelon bits. And when we came in last time, the sweater was swarming with worms on top of the sweater, underneath it, and I think seeing as many as I saw underneath it is the thing that surprised me the most, and it must have had something to do with us placing the, or at least a part of the meal that they got last time beneath the sweater. And you know, for a 150-day-old piece of fabric, I mean, I'm definitely seeing spots where perhaps some existing moth hole that was there already gave the worms a spot to work it, and they're maybe nibbling it away there. Or maybe it was already just a hole caused by moth damage that was already that big when we started. I guess it's probably more realistic to think that way than to think that the worm suddenly went crazy on one tiny little portion of the wool fabric, leaving the rest of it hardly untouched. So yeah, if that had been cotton, I'm telling you, it would be gone by now for sure. I think in any systems where I've done cotton, 100 days thereabouts, the majority of the stuff is usually gone. Maybe a little bit of scraps here or there. Put another 2-3 weeks onto that, you're almost certain to see virtually no leftovers of cotton. And here at 150 days, you know, kind of like I think I mentioned during the last video too, maybe we should have started this experiment with the fabric right in the very beginning of the system's launch. And then if we had, the experiment would be, you know, well over 250 days in service at this point. Maybe that extra 100 days would make a difference, but it's making me wonder. It is funny, and I do think I've thrown the question out there to the viewers on numerous occasions, but I don't recall getting any solid feedback on the topic of whether or not anybody out there in the audience has ever composted wool and what they remember their experience to be like. I'd love to hear some feedback on that in terms of what to expect. You know, after 150 days, am I bound to see some activity soon? Or is it more like, don't hold your breath, another 150 days will go and we'll still be in the same state? I don't know. Well, I'm thinking we're going to try to replicate what I saw in the video from 2 feedings ago. by putting some of the food below the sweater and some of it on top of it. And like I said earlier, since we're foraging here for almost 3 months at this point, that just means no bedding. But like I said earlier, we did cheat. We threw a napkin in here last time. It rested on top of the feeding last time, and perhaps this time we'll give them their bonus bedding down below, underneath the sweater. So let's start in with the banana. We'll stick the banana down there. Perhaps we'll even make it extra easy for them to get at it by folding over some of it. This way, nothing's obscuring the delicious pasty fruit right there smack in the middle. So come and get it. The dinner bell has been rung. And these coffee filters are the ones we're going to mark the feeding zones with. So we'll hang on to those momentarily and place them over the feeding zones when we're finished. And before we put in the sweater, I'm putting in a little bit of grit, and something I like to add to the coffee sometimes is my worm chow, of which I've probably got enough to feed one more bin one time. And it's time to make more, I believe. So let's bring on back the sweater. And now it's got some delicious banana and coffee underneath it, worm chow. And that's not enough, because we're going to make it just as interesting to hang out on the top of it. Some might even say it's more interesting by putting these delicious fruits and veggies on. So I don't have a whole lot of pumpkin remaining from the past Halloween season, but I did have a couple, and I figured I'd break a couple chunks of it out here. Although technically that white pumpkin sat around for a whole year from even the season before that. So in a way, this pumpkin goes back almost 3 years now. Or something in that neighborhood. Alright, so I think that should make for an interesting check-in next time. At least I hope it'll be. Now we'll use this as an excuse to reach out to the far end of the system. In systems like these, where I've been attempting to get the systems to dry by just leaving them uncovered the way you saw it when we first got in here. No coverings of any sort, really, except for the marker to show where we last fed with the feeding zone indicator draped out. The whole aim of that is to see the system start to dry off, and these are great opportunities to submerge some of the drier material resting out on the surface, while at the same time bringing more damp material from down low out to the surface, give it a chance to breathe a bit. A little aeration, and best of all, an excuse to see how the worms are doing down there. It sure seemed like they were enjoying themselves out on the outer edges, even though there's been no food placed out there, with our feeding zones typically getting positioned right down the center. So let's do a quick outer edge aeration here too, and we'll be finished. Here too, good many worms hanging out down in that stuff, even though that's not where the feedings were applied. Sometimes the worms like to swarm around a delicious food item that you left there for them, or perhaps hang out on the sweater because maybe the sweater got soaked with some of the juices coming out of the thawing fruit. Whatever the case may be, sometimes they're all about hanging out in the feeding zone, but other times they're just as happy to be cruising the rest of the system, enjoying the outer edges. As you saw, a good bit of moisture in all of this stuff. Here and there I look at the shelf, I see uncovered systems, and I wonder, oh my goodness, are they doing okay? And all I got to do is dig down into the stuff and till it around, and I could tell right away moisture levels are a-okay. So that's it for the check-in, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.